Welcome to Speak Abundance, the podcast that discusses how to speak more abundance in your life. Whether you're interested in health, financial security, spiritual growth, or personal growth, you'll find something just for you. Remember, this is from my perspective and the guest's perspective. This is by no means meant to replace your doctor, your financial advisor, your spiritual counsel, or your mental health care provider. This is for information purposes only and should be treated as such. Now sit back, relax as we dive into our next episode. You're going to love our next guest, Brie Rhiannon. She is a psychic medium and works in aerospace engineering as well. She does a fantastic job of bridging science and spirituality together in a fun and easy, digestible way. Thank you very much for joining me on Speak Abundance. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I'm Brie. I go by Brie Rhiannon on all of my social media platforms. I am an interesting intersection of spirituality and science. I explain spirituality through science, but I'm also second generation on all of my spiritual stuff. But I work in science and engineering with a heavy emphasis in aerospace and renewable energy. So because of my full-time job, I just started to connect a lot of dots. I've always been very interested in, I think I got into quantum physics in high school. I watched that show Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman. If you ever watched that one, I think it's still out there. You could probably Google it and find that it's on like some kind of platform like Netflix or something. And that just like really got me into learning more about quantum physics. And then here I am working in the science industry, even though that is also not my degree. My degree is in fashion merchandising and marketing. So I'm a little bit of a jack of all trades. And I'm also
Sounds like it.
Yeah, I'm a psychic medium. I practice astrology. I grew up with my mom being a professional astrologer. Now she's a sound healer like yourself. And I also practice tarot and witchcraft. And I apply quantum physics to manifesting with the moon, and I teach other people how to do that.
I love that moon manifesting with the full moon and all that kind of stuff. That is like really so cool, especially when you talk about the retrogrades and
Yes.
I just love that. I soak it all up. So when you're
energy.
Yes. So when you're working in science and engineering and you're a psychic medium, so what challenges do you have in both areas, intersecting both?
I think that that's evolved. Like, if you had asked me that question a year ago, I would say that my primary challenge was like fear. And like the fear of, I do work with all of your big wigs, right? And I was very scared about like, oh, what if somebody at Lockheed Martin finds out that I'm like being a psychic medium and astrologer on social media? They like don't want to work with me, or they view me as less than, because there's been this divide, right? There's been this huge rift between science and the spiritual community for hundreds, if not 1,000 years at this point. So I think that fear was instilled in me growing up in Texas. Like, my mom told me never tell anyone that she was an astrologer. And like, I did lose friends because, oh, your mom is a witch. And so I've just had it really ingrained in me from a young age that that divide between spirituality and science is like very real. I think I've been on this journey over the last almost 2 years of learning that divide is an illusion and that I don't have anything to be afraid of. And at this point, I have some clients that are in the spiritual space with me that I've met through my job in this like science and engineering world that are like VP, C-suite level executive type people in this realm of science and engineering that are also into manifesting, and they're also into astrology. And people tend to be a lot more open-minded than I think we are understanding them to be at a surface level. So at this point, my challenge is fully letting go of that fear and fully getting out of the neural pathway that divide exists, and really being like authentically myself, no matter which space I'm in, of being authentically my scientific nerdy self in the spiritual space, and not being scared that somebody's not going to believe that that's my job, because that has happened. It's happened. I don't even know if you've been in my TikTok live room, like when that's happened, of like prove that you work with these entities that you say you work with. And I've even gotten my badges out from a visitor's pass at like Lockheed.
Oh, no, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, so there are people who come into the spiritual space that like refuse to believe that I work in science, that it's like, no, those two things don't go together. And then vice versa, being authentically myself in the scientific space, that if and when it comes up in conversation that I am a psychic medium and I do practice astrology and witchcraft and tarot, and I have this other side and other business to me, being open about that and seeing that it's very well received. So I would say that my challenge is like marrying the two the way that really they've always meant to be together, and humans have been using science to explain spiritual questions from the dawn of time, and that's how we started really diving down the path of science in the first place. So I think a lot of people are probably in the same boat with that challenge.
Well, the thing that you said about fear, I think a lot of us have that fear no matter where we are, and that fear of being ourselves. And what will people think if I say this or that? Regardless of what belief you have or anything, I think that fear is in all of us. You have a very interesting experience with your past, and I would love for you to talk about that.
My past life in this life, but also my previous past life.
Yes.
Why my past life to this life. So in this lifetime, I was an actress for 16 years. I did musical theater specifically. So I'm a classically trained vocalist. I played piano, lots of music theory background. So a lot of music aspect. I also did dance. I did every kind of dance except for point, on the ballet side. And then, of course, acting. And I got on stage when I was 4. And there was a lot of like teachers and directors and people that I worked with that it was like, this is freaky. It seems like she's done this before. And depending on the person, my mom would be honest that we knew that I had done it before. And she had a best friend that was also a psychic medium that saw above my crib gold and fur, and then she saw it looked like old Hollywood calligraphy, and she couldn't read it because it was old Hollywood calligraphy, and she was like, Marlowe? Like, it looks like the name Marlowe. So my mom called her mom, and she's like, she's channeling that Brie was some famous actress with the last name Marlowe. Do you know like who that would be? And my grandmother was like, I don't know of a Marlowe, but I know of a Harlow. I know of Jean Harlow. Ask her if that's it. And she called her back and was like, oh my gosh, I was seeing the H as or the M as an H. And I would have been like toddler age when we got this information. So my parents didn't.
So this was before you were actually acting?
Yes.
Oh,
So
that's so cool.
much of it at the time. Like I was really, really young when she got that information. So I started acting at 4, and that's when it was like, oh, okay, it seems like she's done this before. And then at age 5, about a year after I stepped on stage, I got the same illness that Jean Harlow died from. And it's called nephritis. And for me, it was strep throat. It's never to this day gone in my throat, but it bypassed my throat, went into both of my kidneys, not just one, and I went immediately into renal failure. And I was like hours away from needing dialysis by the time that we like figured this out. I woke up from a nap and my pee was brown. And like most kids would just flush that down the toilet. I was apparently proud. And I was like, Mom, Dad, come look at my pee is brown. I'm not kidding. I remember doing it. I remember seeing it. I was like, wow, would you look at that? That's special. And I went and got my parents. And my mom was like, thank God you didn't and not say anything. Because the weird thing about kidney issues is like, you seem fine. Like, I was
Mm-hmm.
not on death's door until like a couple of days later, and then I do remember like being really, really sick.
My
So I
goodness.
didn't get dialysis. They put me on really strong antibiotics, but I was on like a low sodium diet for I think 6 months, and it was like a really big part of my kindergarten year. I missed a lot of school, and my
Wow.
mom realized, she's like, "Oh my god, this is the same illness that she apparently died from in her last life." And I was 25 years old when I passed away. I believe the year was 1935. And it happened because my mother in that lifetime was a Christian Scientologist, and they don't believe in receiving medical treatment. That it's like, oh, it's all in the hands of God, and like if you're meant to survive, you will. So it was like a big deal that she passed from something that we had antibiotics in 1935, and I completely could have
Mm-hmm.
lived with that. And then I quit acting at age 19. I did major in musical theater for a year at a prestigious conservatory in downtown Chicago that accepts like 10 boys and 10 girls every year. It's a very, very small 4-year BFA musical theater program that's very difficult to get into. And I remember like I'd signed a lease at an apartment. I had my stuff in storage, like up in Chicago. I was living in DFW. So I come home for the summer, and about like a month into summer, when I had all the intention of going back and completing this 4-year degree, I walked into the living room to my parents' house, and I was like, I do not know how to describe this, but it just feels like I'm done and I want to quit and I don't want to go back. And I think I want to major in like fashion stuff. And I think I want to become a stylist. And my dad like freaked out, and he was like, I don't understand why there's so many people who want to do this and they don't have the talent, and you have the talent and you're just going to throw it all away. And my mom was like, well, Tom, like if you're hearing her, she's saying that she's not passionate about this. And like I never really stepped on stage ever again. I stepped on stage once that summer for a friend that asked me to do a show, and my mom even noticed that I was like a different person. She could tell that I didn't like what I was doing, that I didn't want to be there, that I didn't want to be on stage, that it was all because my friend asked me to. And to this day, because of how talented I was, and I do have like quite a few friends that have made it and that are famous, that have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and everything, people are a little bit confused that I have zero desire to step on stage. And it's almost like I kind of recoil at the thought of performing. And that's why I describe it as a past life. And when you know about soul contracts the way that I do, because I read soul contracts for people, I can channel soul contracts. That's a type of reading that I can do. 16 years as an actress, if you add dying at 25, if you add 16 years to that, that's about when I would have been told by a Hollywood studio. 16 years after 1935 would have been 1950, and I would have been 40, around 40 years old. That's about the shelf life of a Hollywood actress back then. They didn't want you to be past 40 and be on camera anymore. It's not like that now. So that is when, if I had lived through what I was determined to show the universe, look, I can live through this because I got the same illness at age 5. I completed my soul contract. I remained an actress in this lifetime for 16 years. I could have done that all in the past life had I not died. And it's so obvious because I'm very stubborn. I had a point to prove. To prove the point that I could have finished what I started, and I came to finish what I started, and I did finish what I started, and then I was done.
Yeah, right. To me, that is so fascinating that for one, that you know of that, and that two, that you really had a separation from your past life to your current life. Is that how you say it? I don't know.
Well, and I had people on my guide group that other readers picked up on and channeled. I had, oh my gosh, Vivian Westwood, who was Gone with the Wind lady, Clark
Mm-hmm.
Gable, who was apparently Jean Harlow's best friend. And I also had Judy Garland.
Oh,
And
wow.
when I was at that age where I got very, very sick, I was obsessed with watching The Wizard of Oz. I would come home from, like, there were half days at kindergarten. I would come home and I would turn on
Right.
The Wizard of Oz and I would play it over and over and over again until dinner time, and my parents made me turn it off. And every single Halloween for my entire childhood, I was some kind of character from The Wizard of Oz. I believe we replaced the VHS tape more than once because I was rewinding it and playing it so much that I quite literally broke the tape more than once. And so when some other reader was like, "Are you aware that you have Judy Garland in your guide group?" My parents were just like, "Well, that makes a lot of sense."
Of course.
So it's we have breadcrumbs is what I call it. We have a lot of
Hmm.
breadcrumbs that we leave ourselves that can get you information for who you've got on your guide group, information of past lives for you, and like all that kind of stuff. Because it's like the people on my guide group I knew them. They were my friends. So it's like they
Hmm.
were just like, "Oh, you're going back down? See you? Okay." Like we couldn't do it like in person because you died too soon. So we'll just redo, and we're going to be on your guide group, and it's like the same thing. And so we're all just like living out whatever we planned on living out. It was just in a different way. And
Right.
I'm aware that those people are no longer on my guide group. Like after I quit acting,
Uh,
they had no reason to stay.
yeah.
And so like to my knowledge, I don't really have like any performers or anything on my guide group at this point because I
Hmm.
don't need them, and I'm done. Like I'm done with that soul contract and I moved on to another one. So that's a really big thing that a lot of people don't even understand about soul contracts is just it doesn't define your entire life, and you can have multiple soul contracts for yourself that you're living out in a lifetime. It's not all like myopic, and it's like singular to each physical lifetime.
Okay, we're going to get off on a tangent, and I hope you don't mind, but it brought me to when people say that there's timeline shifts. Is that kind of the similar situation?
Yes. And you can be shifting
Okay.
timelines in order to get into a new soul contract. So
Okay.
that's getting into string theory as well, which is why I'm so into
Uh-huh.
quantum physics. And quantum physics really explains all of this, where every single time that you make a decision, you could have made another decision or several other decisions. And it can be as simple as you're sitting at a restaurant looking at a menu, and you could have made a decision to order absolutely any of the other 30 things, which means that you going to a restaurant creates 30 other timelines, and you just live
Oh,
out the timeline that you, and this is where free will is like such an important thing, that like it's why even religion and like the Bible and every religion stresses that humans have free will, because from a timeline standpoint, when every single time you utilize your free will, which is quite literally like hundreds of times a day, you're splitting. And there's like another timeline of like, oh, you decided to put no sugar in your coffee versus some sugar in your coffee, or like, and you can shift between all of those timelines at any time. So anyone who feels like, oh no, like I made a mistake, okay, there's a timeline where you made the other decision, and all you need to do is make the conscious choice to shift into the timeline where you made the other decision.
very interesting. So, how do you handle challenges in your life?
um I probably don't see things as challenges that other people see as challenges. This is a really big part of even my natal horoscope. I have a Scorpio stellium, and Scorpio rules like transformation. So that's like my sun, my Mercury, my Venus, and my Pluto are all in Scorpio. And I describe myself as a little bit of a walking tarot card of the Tower card, that people probably like freak out when they get the Tower card, and I find it to actually, it's probably my favorite card in the deck. It's all a chance for like growth to me. Like any kind of challenge is really just an opportunity for growth, and the amount of like trauma that I have lived through, like even my mom kind of gets upset about it, where she's just like, before you even turned 20, like you went through things that like it's like stacked. And I know people in their 70s that haven't even gone through like 3 of those things, and it's like a long list of the things. So yeah, I don't know, like I'm kind of constantly leveling up. I view it as you're always wanting to like raise your frequency, right? Like you hear that all the time of like raise your vibration or get to a higher vibration, and frequency is the measurement of vibration. And how do you raise your frequency? Trauma. That is like the most efficient way. Raise your frequency. Humans tend to never grow while comfortable, and I can tell that like this is my soul talking. Like my soul knows this and believes this. So when I plan my human lives, I'm like, hey, just sprinkle trauma in there like every 5 days. Just something to make me lose my mind, have to realize that I'm losing my mind, entering the victim mentality. Everything in this physical reality is kind of like designed to keep you away from your power and keep you from figuring it out and keep you from stepping into your power. Like the human experience is opposite day in a lot of ways.
Okay,
like
yeah.
it's just the mechanics of the human experience that like, all right, so you've got this soul, you've lived a bunch of lifetimes, you've got all these memories. We're going to take all that away. Like, you're not going to remember. You're not going to remember who you are, what you are, everything you've ever been to, all these other lives that you've ever led. But you also are going to remember. And you're not going to realize that you're remembering. And that's going to get in your way. It's going to be like completely, like, you're going to have all these triggers that you can't put your finger on and you can't explain. You're going to sit down with a therapist and you're going to be like, I don't know why I'm so scared of heights. Well, because you fell off a cliff and died in some other lifetime. So yeah, like you're terribly afraid of heights. You have no idea why. You can't put your finger on that trigger, but you want to go to the Grand Canyon and you want to go on some tour at the Grand Canyon that's going to put you on the precipice of falling into the Grand Canyon to see one of the wonders of the world. And you're like, my husband really wants me to go to the Grand Canyon. I'm just so scared. And that's all coming from past life stuff. So everything in this experience is designed to get in your way, to keep you from yourself, to keep you from figuring yourself out, to keep you from understanding your power. And it's your job to utilize your free will to also change your perspective at will, change your emotions at will. You can use free will to do whatever you want, feel however you want, have whatever intention you want, and step into your power, remember who you are, remember your past, understand all of your triggers, and then navigate that way. And so that's how I see like every challenge that comes my way is actually a breadcrumb to help me figure out myself better, because I agreed to forget.
Wow. So my next question was, what brings you the most joy? But it sounds like your challenges bring you a lot of joy. I mean, you actually think through.
Yeah.
Even though you cry. You know what? Crying's good, though.
Primary form of expression. And it's like that's probably also a lot to do with my whole chart of like, you've got all that Scorpio is all water, and I also have a Cancer moon, which is all water. So it's like, I think over half, it's like over 60 to 70% of my chart is all water. So crying is my primary form of expression. If I'm mad, I cry. If I'm sad, I cry. If I'm anxious, I cry. Like if I'm happy, I cry. Like it's yeah. But yeah, I do get a lot of joy out of, I think, overcoming the challenge. I get a lot of joy over like figuring it out. So it's like when a challenge comes along and first I cry and I spiral and I feel crazy and I feel like the world is ending. I get all dramatic about it and I get into the victim polarity for a minute, and because you have to go through that motion. So I even tell this to my clients, like, it's okay to enter the victim polarity, which is a neural loop of feeling like a victim. It's just you don't want to stay there, because then you're projecting out everything into your reality. And so it's like the laws of physics take effect, and for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, and all the frequencies that go on in your mind that projects out into your physical reality, and the universe answers you with the same frequency, and that's how you manifest your physical reality towards you. So if you stay feeling like a victim, you will then manifest more things into your reality that reinforce that for you, and you're like, see, this is why I feel like a victim. Look at that. look what just happened again. And now I'm crying again and life sucks again. But you still have to allow yourself to go through the human experience is primarily emotional. So if something makes you feel like a victim, you gotta own that. And it's like, okay, this sucks. Why is this happening to me? Why me? Wah wah. And then it's like, actually, you know what? Nuh-uh, not why me. Why is this happening? Because all energy is a gift. Everything is happening for me, not to me. That's my mantra. So after I cry about it, I enter into that mantra space of, okay, why is this happening for me? And then I go down some kind of rabbit hole. I usually get a download and it's like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do with this. And I use it to become more powerful and step deeper into my power and install and understand my power at a deeper level. And then I can also pass all of that along to somebody else. And that makes me really happy.
I love that. And obviously, you do have moments of stress. And so what is your stress relief? Do you exercise? How do you release your stress? Crying, I assume too.
I need an ankle surgery that I keep not getting. So it's like I used to love to go on walks that I kind of can't really do anymore. But I will like go out and sit out in my backyard or something like that. I moved from Texas to Colorado for a reason. I love the natural beauty here. So there's a lot of like getting out and even just seeing the mountain range of just seeing the natural beauty of where I'm at now really can help put things into perspective, like help calm me down. So that helps, and I do a lot better here than I did back in Texas. But I take a bath like every week, every Saturday night. I'm also very into cooking and like good food. I think that's a really, really big part of, I make a green smoothie every single day. Drink a lot of water. Like it's really a big part of nourishing yourself and like the mind, body, soul aspect of it. I think a lot of people forget the body and like they live up here and they might nourish their mind a lot. And it's like they might watch shows that they like to watch or read books that they like to read or play games or like something that's like up here, and then they might be very spiritual. Like obviously I do moon rituals on a bi-weekly basis. I have an altar. Like I will do a ritual outside of the moon to help me feel better about something, and that's like, or like meditating. I do heart math, so like that's the spiritual aspect of it. But like body is a really big part of it. So for me, that's like baths and food for the most part.
Very good. Well, for someone who wants to tap into who they are, what do you recommend as a first-time person?
A first-time person, I recommend that you have a practitioner always, because
Okay.
I'm always going to say I want people to work on their chakra system and clear and balance their chakra system. And can you do that yourself? Absolutely. There are guided meditations on YouTube. So you don't even need a guided meditation. I just ask Spirit to do it for me. Spirit is my practitioner. People forget that. They think that they have to do all of the work themselves. But I think that for really, if you want to go like full speed ahead on tapping into yourself, see somebody like you with the biofield tuning, see a Reiki practitioner, see somebody like my mom. My mom does acutonics, which is non-invasive acupuncture with tuning forks, using 2 tuning forks at a time, and the healing is taking place in the interval of the tuning forks. So it's everywhere that a needle would go instead of a needle tuning fork, but you also don't have to do it in person. And you also don't even have to do it on video with her. Like she can do it at any time, and it's just as effective because energy goes.
Yeah, I can do that too.
Yeah, we found that out basically
Right.
with COVID.
Yeah.
That taught all of us that. We didn't really know.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, because it's like, oh, well, we have to make sure that we're in person because we can't do this over the phone. Let's try it. And then it was like,
Yeah, it was like my mom wanted to experiment with it, and my brother-in-law was having really, really high anxiety when COVID hit, but they just bought a house, and they're both teachers too, so it was like a weird thing where thought they were going on spring break and moving into this house that they just bought over spring break, and then it was like, oh, just kidding, you're not going back to school. So then they're like, well, we have some projects on this house that we just bought, and my sister wanted to do the projects, and my brother-in-law had such bad anxiety that he couldn't go to the grocery store. They wanted to go to Home Depot, and he couldn't bring himself to go. He was like scared to like go out in public. So my mom was like, what? My mom was like, don't tell him, because I want to try this of like, she'd done some stuff on my sister and it it seems like it was working. But my mom is like, but is that placebo? Is it because she knew that I was doing it? So with my brother-in-law, she was like, I'm just going to do this and we're not going to tell him like when I'm going to do it, and we're going to see if like there's a difference in him. So I think she did it in the middle of the night when he was sleeping, because my mom is such a night owl that she did it at like 1 or 2 in the morning. And the next day, he like gets out of bed and is like, we can go to Home Depot if you want. I feel better. So like,
Yeah.
no idea. My sister didn't even know, I don't think, because my mom, maybe she texted her in the middle of the night, but I think she didn't even tell her. And my mom like sleeps in, so it was like, then they wait till my mom gets up, and she's like, did you treat Andrew last night? And she's like, oh yeah, I did. And that was like our moment of like, okay, like somebody they don't need the headphones to hear it. We don't need to be on Zoom to do it together. Like we could just somebody with the sound healing at any time, and it's just as effective as if they were physically there with you or on a video call with you and like hearing it.
Yeah, I have so many people that are in my community that are like, I need to be there. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Then I have people on the phone that are like, I need to hear it. I'm like, if this schedule doesn't work, I can do this while you're sleeping. And they're like, well, that's really weird. But I did it for my son while he was at work. He didn't know what I was doing. And then I told him afterwards, he's like, yeah, I really needed that.
It's really cool to see. It's like, it really opens your mind, because so many people are just like so bogged down and tied down by the physical aspects of this reality.
Yeah.
And that really gets in the way. And like, that's a really huge blockage. And I know like it's a little bit of like a hard thing to like wrap your head around, to be like, well, actually like this entire reality kind of isn't real, but like there's CIA papers about this that you can read about, of like reality as a hologram, and that's what they mean by that, of like it's all just intangible energy, and it gives us the illusion of tangible energy. And we all know that time isn't really real, and that's hard to wrap our heads around. And we're just like, okay, well, we know that once we're not human anymore, or like once we die, that time apparently doesn't exist on the other side. But how does that work? That it only exists in this one? And quantum physics is starting to explain it. They believe that time is an illusion being caused through quantum entanglement. So like quite literally the way that like molecules are interacting with each other is creating this illusion of time that like it's just that, it's an illusion. It's not real. So like all things exist technically simultaneously at once.
And that is so, I have heard that before, but that is so, like you said, it's so hard to wrap your head around, to try to understand that all together.
Yeah, well, when the CIA released papers about it, and my best friend was like in the military, so
I totally believe that. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with it. It's just my brain is not big enough to understand that.
It hurts. It's just like, okay. It's just crazy though that like they released the information and it's out there and anyone can read it, but like people will still argue that like I'm a quack.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's just like they put it out there and they put it on the table, but because it causes so much cognitive dissonance, people are just like, no, the government lies.
Yeah.
As somebody who works with the government, it's like, the thing is like they're lying now. The lies are they're present, and you don't know what's actually going on now for like safety reasons and national security reasons, and then they wait 30 years or more, and then they tell you the truth. So it's like, it's two things are true at once. Yes, the government does lie.
Yes.
But whatever you think is true today is not really what's true, and it's not what's going on. And if you really want to know what's going on, you'll read about it 30 years later.
But time isn't real. So wait a minute.
How they can get away with that.
Brie, this has been wonderful chit-chatting with you. I appreciate your time. Can you tell us where we can find you and all your offerings? Because I know you have a ton.
Oh gosh, yes. It's Brie Rhiannon. So it's Brie like the cheese, BRIERHIANNON, like the Fleetwood Mac song Rhiannon, on all platforms. I am most active on Facebook for written posts, and TikTok is where I'm most active for video content. There's a link in my bio if anybody wants to book with me. It's easy. I just have it being like an hour-long video call session at this point is is my most popular offering. So people can kind of book at will. I also have some digital products that are, I'm like a teach a man how to fish kind of spiritualist, where I dream of a world where nobody needs readers. I dream of a world where I'm going out of business. So I have my first workbook, and like these cost like $9.99. So I am guilty of paying more than that for like a large drink at Starbucks, depending on what it is. And the first workbook is called my Soul Work Workbook. So if you are looking to figure out what your soul's purpose is in this lifetime, figure out what your gifts are and what your lessons are, a lot of these things are questions that people will ask readers, and Spirit kind of really frowns upon that. They really frown upon people seeking information like that about themselves from an exterior source. So because of that, that's why I made this workbook for people to really figure that out themselves. And it's a Venn diagram with 3 circles, and it has questions that you're going to be asking yourselves, and then there's parts of the Venn diagram where things overlap, where your lessons and your gifts and your purpose all overlap. It also has daily, weekly, and monthly shadow work prompts in it, because this is not something that you just sit down and figure out immediately. And it is a fluid tool. So I have people tell me that they meditate on those questions. They also, if they do tarot and oracle themselves, they pull tarot and oracle cards on the questions that I've presented. People are journaling with it. There's all kinds of ways that people can use that tool. And then the second tool is really for people who have gotten the first tool. But I did make it separate just in case some people are advanced and they're like, wow, I kind of feel like I do have my soul's purpose, gifts, and lessons like on lock in this lifetime. It's the second workbook is called How to Decode Your Personal Frequency Signature. Your frequency signature is like your personal vibration of your soul. Figuring that out, we have a lot of breadcrumbs that are left for us in our life, the things that we feel drawn to doing, the things that we end up doing as a career are breadcrumbs, our relationships are breadcrumbs, the type of people that we interact with and bring into our lives through relationships, both friendships, romantic, and also colleagues at work. So I really break down how to decode the clues that your soul is leaving for you through your physical reality and your human experience to scream at you who you are. And you then can like break that down into one word. It's very challenging. It took me many years to break down my personal frequency signature into one word, which is transformation. And it also has like these daily, weekly, and monthly shadow work prompts for you to figure it out. And you're doing check-ins with yourself. People can also use both of these workbooks like in your moon rituals. So depending on what sign the moon is in, and you have these digital workbooks, you can integrate the kind of work that you're looking to do and figure yourself out. You can manifest information. You can manifest versions of yourself. You can manifest the version of yourself that knows what your frequency signature is. So yeah, those are two things of the link in my bio, in addition to being able to book with me. I also do energy work on people. It's, again, hard for people to wrap their heads around it, because I will be on a video call with you the same way that I am now, and I'm talking and it looks like I'm doing nothing, but I'm actually doing a whole bunch of energy work on you. So it's completely intangible. You have processing for up to 3 weeks afterward, including like physical symptoms. I've seen physical like things on the body come and go and stuff like that. So my clients give me a lot of feedback that the energy work is working, even though I don't use any kind of physical tools for it. And then my deepest offering is like my deep tarot readings. They take me 2 to 3 hours of my time. So that's going to be like the most expensive one. But if people are really looking to get like a lot out of one thing, they can book that. And it is a typed up tarot reading. We come up with what we're working on and the questions that we're asking. I start with a candle ritual. So that's involved. There's smells, there's sounds and everything. Everything is like frequency matching, and that's part of the energy work. I pick all of the cards by hand. I put the whole deck out and I run my hands over, and when I feel heat, I pull. If I feel heat from more than one, I clarify. So all of the cards that are pulled in that are chosen. they're chosen by your higher self, by spirit, by your guides, whoever shows up for the reading. I am a medium, so I do tend to, in those tarot readings, it's like, hey, like your grandmother showed up and she has this message from you. So I think the longest was like 22 pages in Word typed up is like how much people can be getting. And that's why it takes a lot of my time. And you also are still getting energy work from me in that. So kind of just depends on what people want. I can read any energy you want. I can read loved ones that have passed if you're trying to connect with that. I do that. I do pet readings, get to know your guides, that kind of stuff. It's just me channeling. I also do astrology, obviously. So I also will do, I call it intuitive birth chart reading because people are telling me that I'm giving them information that they've never gotten from any other astrologer that they're sitting with. And it's because I channel a lot through astrology transits, through like with what's going on with the moon and things like that. So I see astrology as a toolbox of energy when a lot of people are being taught that astrology is more of a means of understanding and that there's no manipulation happening of just like, this is your birth chart, this is the way you are, guess you have some weaknesses there, that sucks. Like, that's how people treat it. And like people will just be like, I'll give you myself as an example. My Virgo is intercepted in my birth chart, and like that is very true. Like in my natal energy, I'm like not that detail oriented and I'm not that organized. I don't do well with structure. And I did a moon ritual this year to release whatever was blocking me from Virgo energy because I understood that aspect of my birth chart. And then even my mom is noticing, she's just like, oh, wow, like this is very Virgo of you. I've become very, very it's after I did that ritual. So really intuitive birth chart reading for me is understanding how you are reacting to cosmic energy, because somebody else could have the exact same birth chart as you, but they're not reacting to the cosmic energy the same way that you are. Therefore, your strengths and your weaknesses are going to be completely different, even if somebody were to have the same birth chart as you. So I'm analyzing how somebody is reacting to the cosmic energy. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What would you like to change? And then I can even tailor energy work and rituals that you can also do to turn your weaknesses into more of a strength, and also make sure that your strengths never turn into weaknesses, and just navigate the cosmic energy the best that you possibly can. And there's also a lot more that you can look at than just the birth chart. I do progressed chart reading as well. So that's like, it's not your current transits, that's something different. So we can also look at your current transit. So there's all kinds of stuff with astrology that you can look at as like you moving through cosmic evolution, and where you're at today of like your progressed chart is different from your natal chart, and you will see how that resonates with you. So yeah, it's a lot on the astrology that I can do. So that's why I just have like those hour-long video calls, because it's kind of just like, all right, what do you want to do with me?
Well, you use so many different modalities. You don't just rely on tarot or astrology. You rely on everything, whatever's coming at you.
And
I love that.
Because my Mars is in Gemini. So it's like your Mars placement rules like your action and like the things that you do. Gemini is the twins and duality. And that Gemini is like the jack of all trades, master of none is almost like their slogan. Because Gemini they're an air sign. They're very intellectual. So Gemini energy is like, I want to learn all of it. I want to learn everything. But that's in my do placement. So I want to do everything. So that's where that comes from for me.
And that brings you back to bridging your current 2 jobs and your former.
My mom said from a really young age, you will likely have more than 1 job because your Mars is in Gemini. So she's like, it's really common to have 2. Because it's duality and it's the twins. And you can, it's like you're really seeing that play out in my life of like, okay, it's really all one business. I have one LLC, and you can see me as a consultant for whatever it is I'm doing of the business and development and marketing and sales, equipment for engineers to do their jobs, outfitting labs. Somebody wants to do advanced manufacturing, and we're doing automation and like all these things. that's like consultation, but then I also have the spiritual stuff that's consultation. So I just set up my LLC
Yeah.
as I'm a consultant, and that's what I do. And I
Yeah.
work for a company in which I'm a contractor. And I tell everybody it is an illusion that I have two jobs. I don't really have two jobs. It's my frequency signature of transformation. Either I'm sitting with you and the spiritual stuff, and we are working on transformation on that, or I'm working with companies or C-suite level executives and doing transformation on that. And at this point, things are bleeding together so much. I've got CEOs that have me planning business trips around astrological transit.
Wow. Yeah. That is so fascinating.
Well. Like things are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I have some past lives of, well, this is going to sound like I have a huge ego. So I've been told I was the Oracle of Delphi, like more than once, because that was kind of like a Dalai Lama kind of position. So it's the same concept of like the Dalai Lama is like reincarnated. I was doing that. So it's like I was that person. And I also have a lot of memories of essentially being like a king or like royalties, like astrologer and like oracle and like spiritual advisor. And so it's like I've had a lot to tackle on like big fat downloads of like, okay, yeah, like there was this one time, like I've been murdered a lot, or like, you know, off with her head kind of thing, because I said don't go into battle and they didn't listen to me, and like thousands of people died and they blamed me anyway, and then I like got axed because of that. And like that kind of thing happened more than once, that they're blaming the spiritual person of like, okay, well, you gave the wrong advice or whatever. And so now I struggle with like always wondering if I'm communicating properly, always like being scared that like the message is not being relayed properly, being scared of what people choose to do with the message after I relay it is a big thing for me, that I have to let go of that, of like just giving the message is letting go, and you can't control what people do with the information that you give them, because there's just so many lifetimes where I gave some kind of energy reading or spiritual information or astrological or whatever it may be, and things went wrong.
Yeah, right. You were talking about the breadcrumbs, easy for me to say. So all of those little breadcrumbs brought you here too. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I could talk to you for another hour, I'm sure.
You can.
I really appreciate you coming. I will definitely have you on again. I love it.
You gotta keep making episodes. That's the thing. Is like once it's all downhill from there, because you're just like, well, I've got ideas for like a year's worth of episodes, right? And then that seems great, and then it's like you get through that year, and then you might grow in a way that you did not foresee growing, and you've like gotten this audience that you didn't know you had. So I see podcasts bring the same people on more than once all the time. There are people who are just like clearly friends in the podcast world, even who just like, go on each other's podcasts. So don't be shy.
Yeah.
We'll be on your podcast again.
I appreciate it.
If this even gets out there and people have like actual questions for me, like that's super fun.
That would be fun. Yeah.
You know, people ask me questions and I'm never just like, oh, I'm not telling.
No, I love that. Thank you very much for listening to Speak Abundance. If you are interested in following me on social media, I am at Sound Abundance. I am on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. And if you'd like to get in contact with me, find me at Cheryl, Cheryl, at soundabundance.com. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.